Is your sales team always begging for more leads? Are they always asking for high quality, sales ready leads? Well, in today's show, I'm going to share with you the 5-part framework that I use to develop high quality lead generation systems that will make your sales team raving fans. Let's get to the show. Okay, today we're talking about lead generation and more specifically lead generation systems. So there's no quicker way to turn you into the most beloved marketing director or CMO as to consistently pump your sales team full of high quality leads. Of course, before you kind of roll your eyes and go away with that no kidding attitude, let me cut right to the chase. Yes, this is a harder process than it sounds, but there is a framework and there are essential elements that we're going to talk about today that will allow you to begin to bring together that lead generation system that will ultimately deliver consistent leads day over day, week after week, month over month, year over year. And you can create some predictability in your digital lead generation system, your online lead generation system. So there are 5 essential components to developing any online lead generation system. Number 1, traffic. Number 2, landing pages. Number 3, content. Number 4, SEO and PPC. And number 5, email campaigns. We're going to break down each one of those in this show. So let's start with number 1, traffic. Whenever I go into a new client and they're not generating enough leads, or maybe they're not generating the right kind of leads, I always like to start with traffic. And this is often, there's a bunch of different tools you can look at, but Google Analytics is kind of the fundamental one and the one that you probably already have at your disposal. And then ultimately will give you a good overview of what the traffic problem potentially is. And here are kind of the 3 areas or 3 problems that I see with traffic with someone who's not generating enough leads or the right kind of leads. So first and foremost, and this is more common than not, we work with a lot of startups. So a lot of times you may be a brand new company or you might be a startup and you just simply are getting started and you are building up your traffic. You're trying to grow your traffic to a level that platform will actually start to generate leads. So that's one problem to solve, but probably the best one to solve because you kind of have a starting point to work with and a blank slate. Number 2 is you just simply don't have enough traffic. And so for whatever reason, you haven't thought about the traffic component of lead generation. And so as a result, you haven't taken the effort and done the things you need to grow traffic to such a level and such a significance as to be able to, as you kind of convert and you have some of that traffic fall out, that you actually produce enough leads to be consistent. And then the third one, and believe it or not, this is probably the least common one, is you might have the wrong kind of traffic. And usually I see this problem when, one, there's a disconnect in what customers are looking for and potentially the way that you're positioning your service or your product, or and again, this is probably the most likely, somewhere along the line, you've done a pivot in your product and service. And during this pivot, your content was kind of left behind in the old world and you're moving forward in the new world and you haven't kind of made that adjustment yet. So those are the 3 sort of problem areas that I look for in traffic. Number 2, landing pages. So this can be a little bit of a confusing concept, and I'm surprised at how often this is a neglected component inside of that system. So maybe some of the confusion gets created by Google Analytics. So if you go into Google Analytics, as they define landing pages, you're going to see kind of the most popular pages that people initially land on or that they initially engage your site. So the first page they see. And oftentimes is despite how much attention and time we put into it, it's oftentimes not the homepage, or the homepage is only a component of that, and there's these other pages below that probably in aggregate get a lot more kind of first engagements or landing or a lot more visitors to those pages. So the reason this causes confusion is because on a lot of those pages, particularly the non-home pages, they're probably content, right? There's something like a blog post or something like that. And on those pages, if you were to look at them, there's probably nothing there in order to produce a lead. So there's no call to actions, there's no forms, there's nothing on that page that would actually cause someone to become a lead or allow them to reach out and contact you for the purpose of engaging with your sales force, right? So that can be a little confusing, and that's kind of the state of what I often see in the market. So whenever I'm engaging with a new client, that's usually kind of where they sit. So what we want to do is we actually want to design very specific landing pages for converting traffic into a lead. So and that, for the most part, either is a phone call produced from a phone number or a form fill from a web form. And so in order to capture one of the two of those, we need to create landing pages that have those components in prominent positions. So I'm going to give you kind of the high level, and there's all kinds of different ways to design and create these, but the essential components and kind of the structure of that page should pretty much always be the same, okay? So in the upper right-hand corner of that header, there should be prominently your phone number. That's where people tend to look for that phone number. So if you've got somebody to answer a phone or your sales team is routed phone calls, make sure that number, one, works and is up there in that upper right-hand corner. Then the next component in the header above the fold, so to speak, we want to have, this is just my preference, you can do it different ways, but I generally, you're kind of looking for patterns, right? Patterns that the consumers on the web are comfortable with and familiar with, and this is one of those, right? So you have a form, a web form on the right that gives you the least amount of information that you need to collect in order to kind of have that first conversation and to give your salesperson enough information to have a good first conversation. And generally that's kind of really simple. It's probably name, email, phone number, and maybe a short place where they can kind of tell you what they're looking for briefly. In some cases, that will need to be more complex. In more complex transactions, you might need more information. I would encourage you not to want more information, but only need more information. So when I say need, a lot of times our insurance, or our mortgage or sort of financial services clients, there's some essential information that they really kind of need in order to start the conversation. And so in those cases, I advocate kind of a multi-part form, which we won't get into today. But generally, there should probably be only 3 to 5 pieces of information that you're collecting on that form. And then off to the left of that is a copy that tells very specifically the benefits of filling out that form. This is, again, where people often get confused. Instead of listing the benefits or having copy that compels someone to fill out the form and give them their information, they start to talk about the benefits of the product or the service. So this little area here is all about the benefit of filling out this form and what you're going to get if you do that. Then, after that process, you can then build out your benefits and features of the product or service, because they may need a little more encouragement, and they may need a little more information in order to feel comfortable filling that form out. But do that below the fold or slightly after that main call to action section. And then towards the end, you can have a secondary call to action. Definitely on landing pages, you don't want to have them do too much, but you do want to have kind of a secondary capture, and that'll be your email capture. So oftentimes what I advocate doing is giving them a little piece of information that they might need to help them make a decision. Could be a white paper, could be a presentation, could be an ebook, in exchange for an email so that you can get them into your lead nurturing process. Again, that's not a lead, but it does get them into your bigger lead generation and nurturing system, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So that's your landing pages. Third component, content. When we're talking about content, we're now actually kind of moving back up towards the top of the funnel. Not in all cases, but for most cases. And when we talk about content, in any kind of scenario, even the simplest of sales transactions, there's probably some other information that prospect is going to need in order to convert and give you that initial contact information. This information is typically either information to educate them about your service and product and how it can help them personally, It could be information that they need to gather in order to make a case inside of their organization or be a champion for your product or service. So that, again, these could be white papers. This could be just information about the benefits, could be competitive positioning, why your product is a better alternative to something else. But generally, it is content that helps to inform that prospect, that opportunity, so that they can actually feel confident and engaging. Again, talking about financial services, specifically, this is one of those areas where consumers have a little bit of anxiety about the complexity of insurance and mortgages and that sort of thing. So oftentimes we use content to actually make them more confident in actually preparing to talk to a loan officer or an agent, because we know that's the number one friction point. And this can be the same thing for enterprise sales or software as a service. They just may feel like they don't have enough information to kind of feel competitively positioned or confident in engaging with a salesperson. And so we're going to help them with content. So in the case of content, we're thinking about one, who our customer is, what they're looking for, what do they need in order to get over that anxiety and take the next step to actually give you contact information. The other thing that I like to look at as it pertains to content is look around your market and your industry. Who's killing it? Who's doing that well? Get ideas from them, because they've probably already done some testing and they understand the questions that need to be answered. And so there's nothing wrong with being inspired by other people who are doing content really well in your area. And then the last piece of content is be intentional. Be very methodical and thoughtful about what you're building out. And so I always talk about sort of creating your content editorial calendar more like you're creating a book or you're creating the script for a movie. Try to create a concept or an understanding of that full story, and then write the individual components or video the individual components along that longer storyline, instead of just getting up every morning and writing that one-off essay, because it'll make your whole site and that experience, those multi-page experiences and how you kind of cross-link and the things that you give them kind of as next steps when they're encountering your content, it'll feel more cohesive, more seamless, more organized. It'll be less stressful on them, and it will allow you to kind of create better funnels for that consumer engagement. Number 4, SEO and PPC. So this is a traffic strategy, but I feel like it's a core essential component to all traffic strategies, okay? And here's why. So sometimes you may not be able to have the resources or afford to do like pay-per-click because you're a solopreneur or a freelancer, but if you're a marketing department, you absolutely, I see too often this happening, you definitely need to devote resources to both of these components, right? And here's why. So when we're talking about search engine optimization and we're talking about pay-per-click, sometimes we talk about this, the whole kind of ecosystem is search engine marketing. We're focusing on the search engine itself and the actual searches that people are putting in and the keywords that they're putting in to that search engine. And the reason this traffic source is so important to consistency and lead quality is because we know if someone's typing something into a search engine, they're actually looking for something. They're trying to research something. There is a higher intent when they go into the search versus what you're going to get by maybe interrupting them on social media or them sort of encountering an ad and wandering over to your site, or even someone referring them over to your site. That intent is going to be lower because they've kind of wandered in. But when you're talking about a search engine, they personally typed something in with an intention to get more information. And so I want that traffic. That's my best audience development component. So what are those two things, right? So when we're talking about search engine optimization, we already said content is essential. You can't produce any sort of audience and you can't actually get them to convert into a lead unless there's some piece of content there. So you should have a content program, and search engine optimization is a great way to make sure that you're monetizing all of that content. So you're just simply doing the work, the SEO work. And again, there's a lot of complexity to this, but the core of that is you're doing your very best to make sure sure that that content that you've invested time, resources, and probably money into is actually getting into the best position for searches that people do and the organic listings. Now that's going to take time, right? And so you're going to need some time for Google to see it, index it, take a look at it, figure out how many people are going to it, how long they're engaging with that content, whether or not they're looking at multiple pieces of it. So that just inherently takes some time. So the faster route to that, and they work together, so don't leave one without the other, the fastest route to that is pay-per-click. So going into AdWords or going into Bing Ads and saying, hey, I've got some content here that's really important to this keyword, and I want to go ahead and buy my way to the #1 position or in the top part of that. And as a result of that, I'm going to immediately get high intent traffic. So within the same day that I turn that on, if I'm doing everything right, I'm going to, for people that are searching for the things that I think would lead them to become a lead, when they search for it, I'm going to get some of those clicks, and assuming that I'm doing my landing pages right, in that very first day, I'm going to produce leads, right? And so, of course, there's optimization into that, but PPC is kind of like the instant turn on of leads, and you just have to kind of invest in that and, of course, optimize it to get your best return on that. The other thing is kind of how they work together is by pushing traffic into these landing pages and these pages that you organically want to rank. If you've done that right, when you push that traffic in, Google's going to start to pick up on those signals. They're going to see a lot of traffic. They're going to hopefully see them spending a fair amount of time on there, and they're actually going to see them reading multiple pages or converting, and as a result, both of those components will increase and your traffic will grow. Number 5, last, but probably the most important and often the most neglected. Email is still the #1 component for engaging and turning prospects into, or opportunities into, leads and prospects. And so the simple way that that works is, one, email is something that everybody's on. I mean, obviously we're looking at our text and we're looking at Facebook and we're looking at all these other places, but I can guarantee you, whether you're talking to a consumer or you're talking to a B2B client, they're always at least once a day in their email. So being able to gain that permission to make them a part of your audience and be able to engage them on your timetable is hugely valuable. So in order to do that, we talked about this a little before, somewhere on your site and probably every single page, you need to have some sort of compelling secondary, or maybe even on your homepage as a primary call to action to say, hey, if I give you this thing that will help you learn something that's going to personally benefit you or going to help you build a business case or a decision process for this thing that you want to do, or you know that's going to kind of benefit you at work, right? Just give me an email and I'll give you that, and I'm going to continue to give you information like that that's going to personally benefit you, whether work or in your just personal consumer habits. This is going to be a benefit, so give me that email. And then once you have that email, you want to make sure that you have a nice welcome process to thank them for coming into your audience and giving them some immediate benefits personally to actually being on your list. So that can be a couple emails there to just kind of welcome them into the process, and then an ongoing consistent process of nurturing them in your philosophy and your approach, why your solution works, why people need your solution, why they need to be thinking about you. There's a whole bunch of kind of value propositions you can deliver, but that's the core of what you're trying to do. You're going to create some automation. I normally, almost without exception, recommend that this is done on a weekly basis, but on a weekly basis, you want to continue to give them value and stay top of mind, and that's that nurturing process. And by doing this, when they get to that point, when you engage them at that point in time, when they're ready to talk to your company and learn more about your product or learn more about your services, that's going to be a very sales-ready lead. And on top of that, this is what makes salespeople raving fans of you, is when that lead gets delivered, that lead's already conditioned, right? They're already conditioned in your philosophy, your culture, your approach, your solution. They know a lot about it. They're highly educated. So now when that salesperson engages that particular prospect, that first conversation feels really good. There's There's a lot of positive head nodding. There's a lot of yeses almost immediately because they've already heard a lot of this stuff and they're ready to go. And that makes big fans of your sales team. And then the other thing, and this is the benefit to your executive management or your management, is there's nothing better than an email list for managing revenue and sales numbers. So once you get that list to a consistent size, every time you deliver that list, and you send an email to them, you will produce leads. So it's kind of like revenue on demand. Now, obviously, you have to be responsible with this, but if you're hitting a fourth quarter and you're a little bit light, you can up the offers, the incentives, or maybe even the frequency of that email, and you can instantly print revenue. So a huge benefit to having that component in your lead generation system. Okay, so today we've been talking about lead generation system. There's a lot more videos and pieces to this where I'll dive into this in more detail, but the 5 basic components that you need to start working on to build your consistent, high sales ready, high quality leads is a lead generation system that contains these 5 components. Number 1, traffic. Number 2, high converting landing pages. Number 3, content to condition that sale. Number 4, SEO and PPC to be a heavy component of that traffic generation strategy. And number 5, email campaigns in order to nurture that audience into more sales lead. So before I leave, definitely want you to subscribe. We have so much more content like this coming to make you a better marketing director and a better CMO and give you all the tools and resources to do that. So definitely subscribe. If you like this video, I would love for you to hit the like button. If you disliked it, tell me that too, because we'll improve. And this is really important because my number one goal is to kind of help you get unstuck wherever that might be. So as we talk about lead generation today, and we talked about those 5 essential components, in the comments section, leave me some specifics about which one of those are you actually stuck on right now, and I'll do my best to help unstick you. So tell me which of those 5 do you not understand, which of those 5 are maybe the hardest for you, or which of those 5 that maybe you're looking for some tactics and strategies to get you over the hump and be more effective in those, but leave those in the comment. Till next time, again, love to have you as a subscriber. Hit the like button. Can't wait to talk to you on the next video.